Welcome, everybody. Today, we're talking about how to increase thoracic mobility. And of course, this is a bit of a follow along from yesterday's discussion with Phil White from ADPT Physio about shoulder health and scapular winging. They're all very, very intrinsically linked. We've got a great topic to talk about today. This has been a very popular topic on the YouTube channel, and we are absolute experts in shoulder health and low back health. So, and I say that because all of us partners at Unity Gym have had a history of overcoming either low back or shoulder injuries, and we've worked with some of the world's best physiotherapists to do so. And together, we've created some pretty amazing systems. Before we get started, I'd love to encourage you to gently hit that like button on the video if you're watching on YouTube. It does help us get these messages and lessons out to more people. And depending on whether you're watching on YouTube or the Movement Mastermind Facebook group, let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from, and we'll send you back some love. Richie is here with me today, head coach from Unity Gym and the Unified Movement
Howdy.
System, where we turn driven people into athletes. And yeah, we're pretty excited about today's show. We're pretty excited in general because we're working on our UMS app, which is launching the beta group this week. Super, super excited. If you're interested in getting involved in history, getting on the UMS training app beta group, let us know. You can let us know in the comments and we'll shoot you some details about that. Super exciting stuff, super exciting times here at Unity Gym. How are you, Richie?
I'm in the making, that app.
It
Planning
is.
this for a while. I'm great. I'm good. I think today's topic is really important. Over the years as a personal trainer, like almost 10 years now, and I'm sure you've seen it through your time as well, Yanni, like one of the most common places that people need an improvement in mobility is the shoulders and the upper back. Like we see it time and time again. One of the things that is restricting people the most or holding people back from doing the things that they want to do is this area of the body. So I think it's going to be great
Absolutely.
for people to listen to.
Absolutely. And that is a great segue into explaining why this is so important, and particularly why thoracic mobility is so important. So if we just break it down for everyone playing at home who might not know a lot about anatomy, the thoracic spine is the area of the spine really in between the neck and the lower back. Of course, if we break the spine down into its three sections, we've got the cervical spine, which is the neck, down to sort of roughly where the collarbone is here. Then we go down with the thoracic spine to below the rib cage, and then it turns into the lumbar spine. And then you've got, of course, the sacrum and coccyx at the very, very bottom below the pelvis. Now, these areas of the body all play a different role, and from person to person, they have their unique sort of differences. Some people are very tight in the lumbar, and you'll tend to be more mobile in the thoracic, and vice versa. Some people are very tight and locked up in the thoracic, and you'll tend to be more mobile in the lumbar. And that's a very important point to make because there is an intrinsic link between these systems in the body. And one of the things that we teach here at Unity Gym is that when you have problems in one area, you'll tend to stress the other. So if you've got a mobility issue in your thoracic spine, you'll tend to really heavily load the lower back or the lumbar spine in order to be able to do the things you want, like achieve shoulder flexion above the head under load. And I'll explain this very simply. And you see this a lot in the gym when people are doing overhead pressing. If they've got a locked up thoracic spine and they can't open up in the thoracic, get that chest proud really easily to open up the shoulders, then they have to lean back quite excessively and create what's referred to as an excessive lordotic curve in the lumbar spine. And of course, then if you throw a heavy barbell above you, which is putting compressive load down onto those structures, you're going to run into problems in the lower back. In my 20 years of coaching people, one of the most common things that I've seen with lower back injury when people come to me with low back pain is that they're locked up through the thoracic and they've got mobility problems in the shoulders. And when they go join a gym, They might do CrossFit, or they might just try to, start throwing around free weights in the gym, or even try calisthenics and sort of inversion or hand balancing. All of these things require really good open shoulders. You need to be able to achieve good shoulder flexion under load, especially if you're doing clean and jerks or Olympic snatches in CrossFit. And in order to do so, we end up really overloading the lower back if we don't achieve good thoracic mobility. So it's really important that we pre-frame at the start here why this is so critical to get right, and the problems that you might be experiencing. 9 times out of 10, if someone comes with low back problems, I look at their thoracic mobility first and see what's going on. If they're training, if they're lifting heavy in the gym, if you're not a weightlifter, or if you're not training in the gym, then that may not make sense. But it is super important. And the things that can sort of lock up or cause a diminished mobility in your upper body, in your thoracic spine, are what we do right now: sitting down, working at a computer, slouching. Remember, your body is this amazing sort of organism that adapts to what we expose it to most. And a lot of us, from the age of a young child, when we go to school, we get put in a chair and we sit at a desk for the majority of our day. And it's kind of only natural that we adapt to that chair. From that point on, we start to lose mobility movements that we're born with, like the squat movement pattern, because the muscles in the lower extremity start to sort of adapt. Certain things get shorter and a little bit tighter, and certain things get weaker and potentially a little bit longer, more comfortable in length. And we find it harder and harder and harder to get down into a deep squat. But if you look at any child up to the age of about 3 years old, they will sit in a squat for hours on end, playing with their Matchbox cars on the ground, with their toy train sets, things like that. We are born with a unique ability to squat really comfortably. I don't know if I've ever seen a child who wasn't comfortable in the squat position, a young child. But the moment we get put in a chair, that starts to sort of diminish and go away. And the same thing tends to happen with our upper body. When we sit at a desk and we sort of slouch over and we use our computer and our mouse and all these sorts of things, our body starts to adapt to those positions. And what happens first is the old adage: if you don't use it, you lose it. The spine starts to sort of the deeper stabilizers, the intercostals, the multifidus muscles that sort of segmentationally stabilize the spine, start to either lose strength, or they lose mobility. And then the structures and the postural muscles start to either lose strength or mobility, and we just essentially lose that function over time. The longer you leave it, generally, the more you lose it and the harder it becomes to regain. But it's, of course, absolutely possible. There are also some genetic dispositions that we need to address. Kyphosis is a generally a genetic trait that causes excessive rounding and of the thoracic spine, and locking up of the thoracic spine. And there's all sorts of reasons why that occurs. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the thing that is most common and easily treated. And so the first thing I really want you guys to understand is that there is this link between the shoulder girdle and the lower back and hips. If you've got a tightness in one, you'll tend to have an issue in the other. And that's I think something that a lot of people overlook. They come with low back pain, and then they think, oh, I need to loosen up. I'm really tight and restricted in my lower back. I need to loosen it up. 9 times out of 10, that's the exact opposite. What your lower back is trying to do is lock things down and stabilize, because you're excessively weak or loose in the shoulders and upper body, and too much so. You need to sort of address and build strength up here, and then your lower back will start to naturally adapt and feel a little bit more comfortable letting go and not spasming all the time and things like that.
Yeah, the lower
Um,
back tends to be an area of compensation for a lot of issues that people have, whether it's weak posterior chain in general, like glutes, hamstrings, or whether it's a tight upper body thoracic. Yeah, it tends to be that area that sort of gets it the worst from both ends, I guess.
That's right. I mean, and one of the reasons why is simply that from the sort of collarbones to the mid back, you've got the rib cage creating additional structure and support and stability. But from the ribs to the hips, it's just the spine, and so the lower back. Luckily, you've got these huge muscles, lumbar erectors, and then of course the core musculature that are supporting that. But it's really important that those structures stay really strong, and not just really strong, in balance. You can't have overly strong abdominals and abdominal wall, and then a really weak low back and glutes. It's very, very important that we work on these in balance always. And so the sort of the obvious before I move on, I just want to really reinforce the inherent risk to either opposite end, shoulders or lower back, if you neglect one of those. So let's say hypothetically you get tight and lack mobility in the lower back and the hips, then you're generally going to overload excessively the shoulders, and vice versa. If you get really tight in the shoulders and thoracic spine, then you're generally going to end up with problems overloading and breaching the load capacity of your lower back. And so often, if you're experiencing lower back pain, the answer is not necessarily to strengthen your lower back on its own. The answer may lie in treating what's going on in your shoulders and having a look at the posture up there. That will often solve your problems. So, straight up, what can we do now if we transition to sort of practical solutions for increasing thoracic mobility and sort of de-stressing the lower back? And the like 100% hands down biggest bang for your buck that you can do that is going to help all of this is what we spoke about briefly yesterday, which is body weight hanging drills. And since yesterday's show, we actually had some good questions come through about how to apply hanging body weight hanging drills to your sort of training or to your daily routine to make it effective, whether it's better in small doses, one huge dose, or whatever. And the answer to those sorts of questions is always sort of related to where you're at, where you're starting from. If you're very strong, then you'll be able to hang for a minute and take your full load, your full body weight, feet off the floor, and that'll feel really great. Whereas if you're coming from a place of you haven't done much training, you don't have great grip strength, you don't have good posture in the upper body, then taking a portion of your body weight for smaller amounts of time, 10 or 15-second drills, is going to be much more suitable for you. And it's really, really important that you understand that, any exercise, no matter what we give you, any exercise can be used wrong and cause problems, cause an injury. Exercise is stimulus. It's essentially stress to your body. It doesn't matter whether you're doing cardiovascular exercise, stretching related exercise, or strength related exercise. You're exposing yourself to a dose of stress and asking your body to adapt to that stress. And of course, like any stress, in the wrong dose, it can be bad for you. In the right dose, it's actually very good for you. And so, what we want to say is when you start to hang, if you've never done it before, or if you're carrying excessive body weight, or if you're unconditioned and you don't have strong muscles to start with, then start small and don't try to take your whole body weight. You may find that standing on an angle to the bar so that your arms aren't fully flexed above the head, because you may not be able to achieve that yet. Remember, pushing that when you don't have thoracic mobility is going to overload the lower back and cause a little bit of stress and strain in the lower back. So, phone's talking to me here. So it's very, very important that you manage load according to where you're starting from. That's the first sort of key takeaway when you start to exercise. Okay, don't try to do what you see some YouTube guru do, because most likely they're 10 years down the track and a number of years ahead of where you're starting from. Okay, try to do something that is a little bit more suited to where your what your load capacity is. We had a great saying at Unity Gym: it's not the exercise that hurts you, it's how you got there. If you don't follow the right progressions and if you don't manage load, then you're going to hurt yourself no matter what exercise you choose to do. Okay. So that's the first really, really good, powerful exercise that anyone can do if you're just getting started, and you really don't need any equipment. You can go to a kid's playground and find a monkey bar or something like that, and include that in your daily walk. You know, when you go for a walk uh, every day, which you should be doing, then you just make sure that your walk goes via a kid's playground so that you can do a little bit of body weight hanging. Remember, it's not going to be your whole body weight if you're just getting started. You likely won't even be able to hold on. Your grip won't be there yet. Okay. The next thing, if you want to take it to another level, and you want to start buying a little bit of equipment, investing in a little bit of equipment to keep at home, is the use of foam rollers. And foam rollers for what we call spinal mobilization is very, very good for you. And it's something that you can do in a really nice controlled environment. You can choose the angle, you can choose how much of your body lays over the foam roller, and then you can start really exercising almost like what you would sort of do a stretch and then an abdominal crunch on the foam roller to start opening up and exercising your thoracic vertebra on a sort of segmentational basis. So, you know, when you hang, the whole thing is going to get exercised at the same time. Whereas when you use a foam roller, it'll be several vertebrae at a time that get a bit of movement while the rest of them are sort of bracing and supporting you. And then you'll sort of reposition the foam roller up and down the spine to get different areas of the back. And that can be done really gently, and it can be done really intensely, depending on how you choose to lie on the foam roller and how you choose to move on the foam roller. We like to say that foam rolling is, you know, a daily staple, and most gyms have them, so you can always usually find them, and it's a great way to offset how much sitting we do. Combining those two, hanging drills and foam rolling drills, to sort of get that segmentational mobilization as opposed to the whole thing being decompressed at the same time. Richie, what do you think?
I love a bit of both, to be honest. The hanging, the back balls, or foam rolling tools to help arch the back. One of the cool things that I've recently been using is a yoga wheel. And if you think bending your back over a foam roller is intense, the yoga wheel brings it up that next level. But it's really good. You know, you can really get a good shoulder mobilization through it as well by just hanging onto the wheel over the back of your shoulders. It's really good. So for
Yep.
like external objects that you can use to help create that mobility, I love that one. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorites now.
I actually uh, purchased this awesome tool, which is an ab wheel, but it doubles as a yoga wheel. It's got a really thick rubber wheel
Yeah, right.
here. It's almost
Cool.
like a go kart wheel, and
Yep.
you can roll over it and lay over it and use it for all of these mobility drills. And it's really, really cool. I keep that right here in my office. And the other thing that I keep here is a back ball, which Richie mentioned there. They come in different sizes, and the back ball is really a more aggressive way to get segmentational mobilization of the spine. So you generally don't use them on your lower back, but you do use them on your thoracic spine, and it gets in deeper. It's much more aggressive. But when I said that the foam roller does several vertebrae at a time, the back ball does one or two at a time. So you can really start to get in there and open it up and get that moving. And you know, to improve thoracic mobility, it requires, just like anything else, a combination, and I would even go as far as saying a balance in strength stimulus and flexibility stimulus, because we're trying to both open up the thoracic spine, but you know, there's no point gaining mobility or flexibility if we're not strengthening through the range, because then you're just creating instability. If you're just stretching and never strengthening, you're creating instability and weakness, vulnerability. So it's very important that you understand that. Every stretching drill that we do at Unity Gym is coupled with a strength training drill so that we're developing strength through range, because true strength cannot be achieved in the absence of mobility, and true flexibility cannot be achieved in the absence of strength. You cannot use the flexibility that you're gaining if you're just passively elongating muscles. Remember, mobility and flexibility adaptations are an adaptation of the brain mostly. The muscles are designed to lengthen and contract, and they only know contract, or relax, contract or relax. That's it. It's the brain that inhibits the lengthening of a muscle system to give a joint more mobility, because it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel stable. It doesn't feel strong in that range. If you haven't accessed that range and you haven't stimulated and developed strength in that range, then the brain is going to inhibit that range. And so a lot of people think, oh, if I just stretch it, I'm going to get more flexible. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to strengthen at the same time. It's very, very important that you understand that. So we've just mentioned probably our two favored drills to do to improve thoracic mobility. One is obviously the body weight hanging, variations and drills. And of course, we start taking only a portion of our body weight. If you've got compromised flexibility in the shoulders and thoracic, then you start even on an angle. You won't take the arms up above the head fully. You'll keep them in front of you at the start there. If you've got frozen shoulder syndrome or anything like that, you'll be starting on a real angle. You don't, and then you just slowly take a little bit of weight. Um, Another variation of that is the anterior chain stretch that we do at Unity Gym and in the UMS, which is a really great stretch, which kind of does the same thing. We hang from either gymnastics rings or a bar that's set up low enough that our hips are still in contact with the ground. So our lower extremities are laying on the ground and the rest of us is nicely rounded, and it stretches the abdominal wall right up through into the shoulders and chest. And that's some people would say a more aggressive stretch. Some people might find it a little bit less aggressive, depending on really what your grip strength is like. And then, of course, we've talked about the spinal mobilization using tools that we can purchase on Amazon, back balls, foam rollers. If you want to get really fancy and combine a strength and mobility tool, you can get one of these amazing ab wheels that I've got. I got it from Amazon. And then you can do some core exercises as well. And really, the last thing that I want to talk about and highlight is that you also really want to be strengthening the erector spinae, posterior chain, rhomboids, and trapezius, low and mid trapezius muscles. And there are a variety of different strength training exercises that you can do for that. The most obvious that's going to get absolutely all of them, and one of the reasons why we love them so much, is any deadlift variation. Any deadlift variation with a barbell, kettlebells, or dumbbells is going to hit every single one of those muscles. And that's why it's considered the grandfather of all exercises. It just does so much with one simple movement. Well, not simple, it's a complex movement. But other than that, there's lots of different variations that you can do that are a little bit more mild and are going to sort of isolate different areas of the body. Any squat movement pattern is going to be a great exercise for this. For the lower extremity, for the posterior chain and erector spinae. The erector spinae muscles are the muscles that sort of travel from the tailbone right up to the base of your skull. And there's the lumbar erectors, there's the thoracic erectors, and so on and so forth. You can break them down into compartments, but really they all work intrinsically together when we're loading the posterior chain. And the posterior chain also includes the hamstrings and glutes. So if you think squatting, where we have to stay upright with a barbell or a kettlebell, if we're doing a goblet squat, then we're going to be working all of those muscles. If we're doing a deadlift, we're going to be working all those muscles. But then there's also some really good benefit in doing exercises like face pulls or high rows, where we're getting those thoracic muscles and the scapular musculature starting to work again really, really nicely. We also get a lot of benefit doing all of the protraction and retraction movements that we do in our straight arm scapular strength, which is also what we use to improve scapular winging, like we spoke about yesterday, so that we're exercising and strengthening the musculature around the shoulder blades at the same time as improving that thoracic mobility. Do you have anything more to add to that, Richie?
Yeah, I think just the takeaway is that if you're working on those fundamental movements for both lower body and upper body, you're going to be covering a lot of your bases already. That you don't really need too much extra on top of that to really improve your thoracic mobility. Um, yeah, like like you said, like if you're incorporating the horizontal push movements, vertical push movements, And same with the pulling movements and the squat and deadlift. You're going to be strengthening all that musculature through up the back very well. So yeah, you're really not needing too much extra on top of that to help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we bring this in for a landing, hello, Lucio, watching on the Movement Mastermind. We're going to see you in the coaching group shortly. Lucio is a personal trainer and a member of our UMS online coaching group. And we got D Mac giving us a mad bicep flex on the YouTube channel. Uh, let's just summarize what we've spoken about here. The key take home that I want you guys to understand is that the shoulders and back are intrinsically linked, the shoulders and lower back. If you have a problem or a restriction in mobility or a lack of strength in either of those, it's going to cause problems for the opposing end of the body. So if you're locked up in the thoracic spine and you've got shoulder flexibility limitations, you're usually going to overstress the lower back when you try to do exercises above the head, like overhead pressing, potentially even pull-ups. It's not so bad when you're doing pull-ups because you're decompressing, just the nature of the body. You're not compressing load into the lower back. It's also, it can also become a problem. It can make squatting, barbell squatting, really difficult for you. The next thing is that poor strength and or mobility in either will tend to overload the opposing end, okay, which we've made really clear. The two best bang for your buck drills that we like for thoracic mobility are bodyweight hanging drills, and there's a myriad of different varieties you can do based on your strength and starting point. And then mobilization on using tools like the foam rollers and the back balls and things like that. We also want to make sure that you understand it's very important that we strengthen the posterior chain, the rhomboids, and all of the scapular musculature, which include the mid and lower trapezius. So all of those face pull drills, Powell raises, trap through raises, they're all going to be really helpful as well to keep you upright. Because remember, there's no point improving mobility in the thoracic spine if we're not also improving strength in the surrounding musculature to help hold you up. We want to really, really work on those postural muscles as well. And this is going to improve performance in your upper body, in your lower body, like really, really dramatically if you give this a bit of focus, guys. Closing comments, Richard. My kids are going to start attacking me in a sec.
Nope,
Seems like they
that's
only
it for
have
me.
20 minutes.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Pleasure to put out another show again for you. See
Awesome,
you next time.
guys. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to bring this one in for a landing, talking about how to strengthen shoulders for pull-ups and overhead press. Very exciting. Yeah, we'll see our coaching tribe in the group in just a second for your daily group coaching call. See you soon. Thanks, James. Thanks, Lucio. Thanks, D Mac, and anyone else watching.
See you guys.